how Project Veritas depicted in a video the events surrounding her assault. And the judge, who was first appointed by former President George W. Bush, ruled that the video was protected under the First Amendment, according to the Asheville Citizen-Times, North Carolina. Now, quote, while the internet has broadened the number of variety and available voices in the marketplace of ideas, it has also served to undermine the public's confidence in the veracity of these sources. That's the judge. According to the Washington Post, when they cited a court transcript, that fine line has to be walked. And I think that walking that fine line required this court to take a close look at what our issues really are for the court and what issues are really for this jury. And the judges, if I've gotten it wrong and the Fourth Circuit says that this is not what the law is, I hesitate to think where the First Amendment is going in this country. Now, this raises the important issue of the charges against Julian Assange. If you go back to the historic Pentagon Papers case, I'll give you a very short synopsis, then we'll bring in James O'Keefe here. The Pentagon Papers has to do with the history and role of the United States in Vietnam and literally from World War II until 1968. That's what they're looking at. They were commissioned in 1967 by the U.S. Secretary of Defense, guy by the name of, you probably have heard, Robert McNamara. They were turned over without authorizations. In other words, an internal review report that was supposed to be secret. But they were turned over to the New York Times, and later even the Washington Post got involved in this, and by a guy by the name of Daniel Ellsberg. He's a senior researcher. He was at MIT. Anyway, the 47-volume history, it had approximately 3,000 pages of narrative, 4,000 pages of documents, took 18 months to complete. Ellsberg worked on the project, had been an ardent early supporter of the U.S. role in Indochina, but by the project's end, he had become seriously opposed to any U.S. involvement. He felt compelled to reveal the nature of U.S. participation, and he leaked major portions of the papers to the press. Now, this is where it gets interesting. On June 13, 1971, the New York Times starts publishing a series of articles based on that study. That was top secret, classified top secret by the federal government. After the third run, the third installment appeared in the New York Times, the Department of Justice obtained a U.S. District Court temporary restraining order against further publication of classified material, contending that further public dissemination of this information would cause immediate irreparable harm to U.S. national defense interests. But by the way, that's always a balancing act. That has to be taken into account and taken seriously. Sources, methods, lives potentially at stake. Anyway, so the Pentagon Papers revealed, for example, Harry Truman gave military aid to France in their colonial war against the communist-led, dictatorships around the world. Long story short, this became a huge defining case. And what the court said, just to give you a quick summary here, and it became as long as the New York Times or the Washington Post was not involved in getting the information illegally, they had the right to publish it. Fast forward Julian Assange. Fast forward Project Veritas. Fast forward this ruling. And what it means is that unless they can show that Julian Assange was involved somehow, some way in obtaining the things that WikiLeaks published that would have been illegal, it's perfectly protected constitutionally and upheld by the Supreme Court. This is why this case last Wednesday with Project Veritas, to me, coupled with the Assange issue, is very important. Now, if in other words, if you're not involved in the crime, the criminal aspect of gathering that information, but you're given that information and you work in the press, do you support the media's right to print it? Now, I have my own personal standard, which would be, and I remember asking way back Assange this question, would you publish something knowing you might get somebody killed, that you might reveal sources, methods that put people's lives in jeopardy? And I remember, if I recall, he said no. And that brings us to, of course, James O'Keefe. How are you?
Hey, Sean. Great to be with you today.
All right, let's talk about your case in particular, because I do believe that these cases now, we're getting to a point where we're really going to have to define these issues, both the dangers and the freedoms that are inherent for everyone in the media, in the press.
Well, Sean, there is a war waged on the First Amendment by some of the people opposed to me. And if I was the New York Times, well, let me put you this way. I'm going to quote the federal judge. This is an Article 3 appointed for life federal judge in Federal District Court, North Carolina. It's Teeter versus Project Veritas. And the judge actually said in this motion to dismiss this case, he dismissed it on what's called a directed verdict, which is very rare. That's right before the jury issues the verdict. The federal judge throws the case in a garbage can. And the federal judge said, if this case was brought against Mike Wallace, could somebody really have been successful, or would people have laughed? That's what the judge said here. So it's because of who I am. They brought this against me. They would never bring a case like this against the New York Times or CBS News. Now, the facts in the case were, I quoted Scott Foval, the man you heard about 5-10 minutes ago, on tape, claiming credit, it's his words, not mine, that this woman named Teeter was one of his so-called bird doggers. This is his words. And it was newsworthy for him to claim credit for that woman. He said that she was inciting the violence at these rallies. He took credit for a lot of things. I published his words, and she, Teeter, the woman, sued me for defamation. And the federal judge gives this unbelievable ruling, and it's 20 pages long, and he's talking about Mike Wallace. He's talking about taking a Sharpie marker to the First Amendment, and he throws the case out right before it goes to the jury for a verdict. It was an extraordinary...
Well, I want to read what the judge said here, because this is really important. I think if I got this wrong, I'd certainly like for somebody to tell me that I got it wrong. I have a little bit of hesitation in saying that this time, because if I've gotten this wrong, the Fourth Circuit says that this is not what the law is. I hesitate to think where the First Amendment is going in this country. Wow, that was powerful.
Yeah, the judge is basically saying there, because this is a directed verdict, very rare, and the other side appeals it to the Fourth Circuit, which is one step above him. And he knows they're going to look at his so-called homework, and he says, if they reverse my decision on this, I hesitate to think where we're going as a country. It's very rare for a federal judge to make that statement. And again, Sean, this would never have gotten to a jury trial if it was anybody else. They would never have sued someone and taken it to trial because I filmed a guy making a statement, a very newsworthy statement, because he works with Bob Creamer, and Bob Creamer works with Hillary Clinton.
Well, I think a lot of the lawsuits that you have had against you are nuisance suits to keep you distracted, spend your money, and keep you busy and stopping you from working. In other words, if you're caught up with lawsuits at all times every day, you're not exactly doing your job, because you have to devote a certain percentage of your time to what the legal matters are. You can't ignore them, which is why the first 2+ years of the Trump presidency, all the success in spite of daily having to deal with a special counsel investigation, what the president called a witch hunt. If I had to guess, it probably consumed half his day, many days.
Yeah, it consumes about 30 to 40% of my time, our time, and our money to deal with these lawsuits. And by the way, Sean, they're all coordinated, something you'll see in the coming weeks as we release emails. In the discovery process, they use the law as a weapon to settle political disputes, and that's wrong. And that's why we feel so vindicated in this case, because the judge said, I don't care who you are, you can't sue someone and claim it's malice because you filmed a guy in a bar. It doesn't matter where you filmed the guy. He's making the statements. So the principles were at stake in this trial. And Sean, yes, they're trying to trip me up with litigation. They're trying to bankrupt us. And the other thing that makes this so incredible is I don't settle lawsuits. Most people settle. The New York Times settles lawsuits. All media corporations settle lawsuits. I don't, because if I do that, if I settle the lawsuit, they're going to say that I lied, I'm a liar, I'm held to a different and higher standard because they don't consider it to me to be a, quote, journalist. So because I don't settle lawsuits, all these things are going to trial, and I'm winning. In fact, I've won 5 lawsuits so far. I haven't lost a lawsuit. And I think it's going to send a huge message to the opposition. Don't sue Project Veritas. You will lose.
All right, quick break, right back. More with James O'Keefe, who is with CEO, founder of Project Veritas, projectveritas.com. On the other side, then we'll get to your call straight ahead. You know, people that would, we put things in front of our curb, right? You're throwing out maybe, I don't know, an old table you don't need or want or a chair, whatever it happens to be. Now, sometimes you wake up in the morning and it's gone the next day, but you're not going to put out your beautiful China dining room set or whatever you think is what you want in your house, because then it walks away. Now, it's the same thing with financial documents or passwords or social security numbers. Did you know when you use public Wi-Fi, even password protected public Wi-Fi, that is exactly what you're doing. You give access, information that you send and receive, it becomes available to these cyber criminals. Yep. That's why you need Norton Secure VPN. It's a virtual private network. It encrypts all of your connections, even on public Wi-Fi, so the information you're sending, receiving is safe from these cyber criminals who want to steal your private information, or companies that want to track your browsing activities. Now, it's only $3.33 a month. You install it, log in once, it runs seamlessly in the background, period. Now, you can get Norton Secure VPN. Just go to norton.com/VPN, norton.com/VPN, $3.33 a month. That's it. And it will encrypt and protect all of the information you send and receive.
While the mainstream media is asleep at the wheel, Hannity Watch is on the job, bringing you the news no one else can. Sean Hannity. Driving liberals crazy. 3 hours a day, every day, the Sean Hannity Show is back on the air.
How big a deal do you read the portion of the executive order last night that appears to give Barr the unilateral authority to declassify?
Well, I see it as a very, very serious and outrageous move on the part of Mr. Trump, once again, trampling upon the statutory authorities of the Director of National Intelligence and the heads of the independent intelligence agencies.
We already know that there was an outrageous amount of corruption that took place at the FBI. They leaked information. They lied. They were specifically working, trying to take down the president, trying to hurt the president. We'll leave the final call up to the Attorney General, and he'll get to the bottom of it. But we think Americans deserve the truth.
So
the president's asked for that, and we should expect nothing less.
So the president is not going to accept exoneration if that's what Bill Barr finds?
Look, I'm not going to get ahead of what the final conclusion is, but we already know that there was a high level of corruption that was taking place. We've seen that in the IG investigation that's already happened, but there's a lot more there that we still need to know, and we're going to let the Attorney General do his job.
Well, it sounds like you're not. That's my point. It doesn't sound like you want him to do his job. It sounds like the president has already determined the outcome.
Chuck, that's the reason that he's granted the Attorney General the authority to declassify that information, to look at all the documents necessary, is so that we can get to the very bottom of what happened. Once again, we already know about some wrongdoing. The president's not wrong in that, but he wants to know everything that happened and how far and how wide it went. We know that there was corruption. Let's see.
Does he expect criminal charges? Does he expect, he's accused James Comey of treason. Does he expect Jim Comey to be arrested?
Again, we're going to let the Attorney General make that determination as he gets to the conclusion of this investigation.
Now, listen, did you guys hear what John Brennan just said right there? Listen to this. I'm concerned about the Attorney General exposing intelligence community sources and methods. Oh, a little fear now has crept into the ever so devious mind of Mr. Brennan. He was so bold but a year ago, just like Comey, so arrogant, so bold but a year ago. Isn't that fascinating to watch that? And by the way, Sarah Sanders was amazing, arguing with Chuck Todd over Barr, investigating the origins of the Russia probe. Why should we not? I thought journalists would want to get to the truth. I thought they actually cared about news and information being given to the American people because they have a right to know. Oh, only their false conspiracy theories, their hoaxes, their lies for 2 years. When is Chucky Todd going to apologize for what all of fake news NBC has done? Conspiracy TV, MSNBC. Is he really proud of the fact that they've been that wrong that regularly on such an important topic? And now that we're discovering, oh, yeah, there was a rigged investigation for Hillary. Now the deep state are turning on each other. Yeah, there really was Russian interference. It's called a dossier. It was bought and paid for by Hillary. What, now you don't want to talk about Russia or collusion or Ukraine and collusion because it involves Hillary? You seem so obsessed with obstruction of justice up until the point where Hillary Clinton is guilty of obstruction. You don't want to talk about her obstruction. You don't want to talk about her Russian dirty dossier that even the New York Times is suggesting is disinformation, Russian disinformation used to impact the 2016 election. Just like I don't think you want to hear about how the dirty dossier was used in a FISA application before the election, after the election. It's an unverifiable document. Its own author doesn't stand by it, but it became the basis of 4 FISA warrants. But really not just about one man, Carter Page. It was also about getting to all things Trump world. Or maybe you should care about, why were they in fact spying, even using blonde bombshells to flirt with George Papadopoulos? Why were they spying on the Trump campaign in the first place? And what about the exculpatory evidence that they purposely withheld from FISA court judges and withheld through the whole process, as the country now believed your lies for that long a period of time? And when do you ever get trust back? You never should. That's the point. You can't even acknowledge a simple truth, which is, yes, you were wrong. Yes, you were your mind was so clouded with hatred and rage for a president that you didn't think should win, that blindness literally governed your daily decision making, and the poor coverage and fake coverage and lying coverage and conspiratorial coverage that you are feeding your audiences every day. Just saying. All right, let's get to our phones quickly. We got, San Diego, Kogo Radio. Matthew standing by. Matthew, hi, how are you? Matthew, what's going on?
Hey there, Sean. How are you? Big fan.
Thank you, sir. What's on your mind today?
I just wanted to ask a simple question. I'm 21 years old, paying Social Security with the various jobs that I've been doing. I want to know, are we going to see any sort of Social Security entitlement reform, especially with the new report that came out saying, Social Security is going to start running the deficit, and then in 2035, 36, we're going to start to see benefits being cut. So is my generation going to have to suffer because Republicans and Democrats now, and I'm disappointed on Republicans when we have both the House and the Senate because we didn't get entitlement reform packages inside. We need to do a serious job with it. Do you agree, or am I just kind of blowing the
You sound like you're in a wind tunnel. I'm only kind of picking up every other word. Can you give me a quicker synopsis? I'm not. Are you on the beach in San Diego? You must be at the Del Coronado.
No, not quite.
So, yeah, should we get serious about fixing Social Security? Is that what you're asking me? Sure.
I mean, yeah, essentially, yeah, because I'm paying into it now. But, I mean, let's be honest, I'm not going to reap the benefits that...
You probably are never going to see that money. They're going to do a couple of things over the years. At some point, they're going to means test it. In other words, if you've got the means, you paid in your whole life, maybe 50 years of work, and you won't get any benefits.
Yeah.
And then the next thing they're going to do, I think, is, they're probably going to tax the wealthy to pay for all the money they squandered. Because remember, they put it all in the general fund as a means of misappropriating your dollars. If any corporation did what they did, it would be called a Ponzi scheme on a level that made Bernie Madoff look like he was playing Monopoly.
Exactly.
Yeah, no. There was a city in Galveston, Texas that once opted out. And when they opted out, I'm going to tell you, it worked out so much better for the people there. All right, Jordan is in Houston. Jordan, hi, how are you? Glad you called. What's going on?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. What's happening?
So I believe that the Mueller investigation actually ended up helping Donald Trump for the 2020 election because the media spent so much time on it that when the truth came out, no American can deny the corruption of the Democratic Party. And one more thing, Sean, I'm a millennial, but I do not identify. And other people my age might go crazy over Brad Pitt or fill in the blank, but I idolize people with intelligence and the bravery to stand up for what's right. So you're my Brad Pitt.
Well, you should see Linda's face right now because my face is beet red. That's very nice of you. Thank you very much. There are a lot of smart people your age. I'm sure you. Now, may I ask how old you are? Linda hates when I do this.
I am 29. I'll be 30 in August.
And you're not married, apparently, right?
No, I am married.
Oh, you are married. Well, isn't he Brad Pitt? He's the guy that should be Brad Pitt in your life.
Yes, he knows, but he knows what Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity all mean to me. If I were to see y'all on the street, I would probably freak out like people that see celebrities.
Now, listen, people, one thing that I'm very happy about is there is a network we have in this country, and that's all of us. Those on talk radio, the few of us that actually have TV shows and tell truth. And as I tell people when they thank me for doing whatever my job happens to be, I always say we're all one spoke in a wheel. Every voter, every donor, every person that makes a phone call, every person that tells another person the truth and fights back against the media mob and they're lying and the Democratic Party and they're lying. All of us combined are needed to make that wheel go round. And if we do this right, and I still believe energy is our path towards raising the standard of living of every American so far beyond what any of us ever thought possible, then this will be America's greatest moment. We have that ability. But on the other side of it, you got this whole other group of people that would take us to the back to Fred Flintstone era. And, we're going to take away the lifeblood of our economy, oil and gas, which we are now for the first time in 75 years independent of. So we need every single person that gets it. Every person is a spoke. Okay, I'm just a louder spoke because I'm on the radio and TV. But every spoke is equally important because if there's enough of us, we not only stop them and their insanity, but we make this country, what it was designed to be. The greatest, single, best country God ever gave man, which is why so many sacrificed so that we have this freedom that we frankly take for granted. Because we don't, I'm sure you don't wake up every morning and go, my eyes are open. I live in the freest, best country God gave man. You're like, oh no, what do I got to do? All right, you race in the shower, you shovel coffee down your throat. If you have kids, you get them dressed off to school, make their lunch, peanut butter and jelly, whatever you're making them that day. Then you go do your 14 hours. Then you come home. Then you throw a little food down your throat. Then you do homework and then you put them to bed and it's Groundhog Day. You do it the next day. But if you think of the alternative, I can't think of a better system where we have done more for the advancement of the human condition than the United States of America. Imperfect, sure, but there's never been a country like this that has never abused its power and advanced the power it's accumulated for the benefit of others. In other words, Barry Farber would say there's never been a country like the U.S. that has accumulated more power and abused it less and used it to advance the human benefit. And that's because it's predicated on this notion that God made us all. Every man, woman, and child. He created all of us. And this is the country where you are supposed to be, sometimes are not. You're supposed to flourish, find it, deliver it, and now we have to protect it like other generations, just in a different way. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I gotta say, I gotta interrupt for a second. I mean, Brad, you are on your game today.
Oh, good grief. Really?
Do you think so, Jordan? I mean, Brad is just out there. He's just preaching, just getting the word out.
All day, every day.
Wow.
All day, every day, Brad. You do it. Get yours.
Are you done?
I'm never done.
Never. Anyway, Jordan, thank you. God bless you and your family. And, I do mean one thing that's really important. Every single person now that gets this, that gets what's at stake, every American that understands this whole other mindset mentality that would literally bring America as we know it to our knees. They've got to be, their ideas must be defeated or else this goes away. And it, as Reagan said famously, but one generation away from losing freedom. And every generation has their responsibility to stand up and protect the liberties, the freedoms, the natural state endowed by our Creator, which so many countries suppress in every individual. All right, Hannity tonight, 9 Eastern. I'll tell you about that in a second. All right, so remember when the left called the New Green Deal bold, or how about their bold defense of, anti-Semitism? Why didn't they condemn Omar and others? They were afraid to do it in the House. I think they're kind of mistaking what bold really means for something else, because the way I define bold, is like not giving mullahs $150 billion, or when I get up in the morning, I don't go to, a coffee shop where they now have needle disposal centers in every bathroom and the worst coffee you've ever drank, ever. I drink Black Rifle coffee because it is bold and it is the best I've ever had in my entire life. Every single guaranteed cup of coffee is going to blow away anything you've ever tried before. Now, remember, Black Rifle Coffee Company, founded by former special op vets. They hire special op vets and first responders, and they donate some of the proceeds to, special op vets and first responders. But they make everything easy. You join their coffee club, you get special deals, they ship it right to your house, and you know what? Totally hassle-free. And when you try it, you're going to, think back, I didn't really drink coffee before because it's bitter, it's horrible, it's weak, it just never will reach their standard. And Black Rifle Coffee Company, I guarantee you, will give you the best coffee you've ever had, and you're supporting an American success story, and that is a company that gives back to veteran and first responder causes and serves a coffee and culture for those of us, that are the smelly Walmart people. We are the ones that make the country great, not the elites on each coast. To get the best coffee you've ever had, just go to blackriflecoffee.com/Sean. You get 20% off your first purchase. blackriflecoffee.com/Sean. 20% off, and you are going to thank me for telling you about them.
Broadcasting throughout the greatest country in the world. You are locked in on the Sean Hannity Show.
Tonight, 9 Eastern, on the Fox News Channel. All the breaking news now that the president is declassified. Also, phony Russian dossier author Christopher Steele doesn't want to cooperate. Well, maybe Great Britain will send him over. We'll get into all that tonight. The great one, Mark Levin, Karl Rove, analyzing, even the New York Times projects every model shows that Trump would win re-election. We also have Greg Jarrett, Sarah Carter, Ari Fleischer, Dan Bongino, Geraldo Rivera. 9 Eastern, Hannity, all the breaking developments on the Fox News Channel. Thanks for being with us. See you tonight. Back here tomorrow.
American way. Of course, the next best thing to a seat in the stands is a seat in front of a 19-inch RCA Victor television. One more day to Labor Day weekend, the traditional occasion for tasty outdoor barbecues or picnics.
This is Times Square, 42nd